Hello, everyone. Welcome to Autistic Out Loud, our final webinar to our webinar series. My name is Tamika Stitcher Spruce, and I am a disability justice activist, independent film producer, and also the executive producer of this project. And we are so grateful that you're here with us today. Nearly a year ago, Julia and I, we set out to create a documentary that centers and amplifies the voices of Black autistic people, Black disabled people, which we know that these stories are often left out of the mainstream narrative. So this is like a movement that we're growing. We're part of the movement. And this webinar series is part of that evolution for accessibility purposes. I am a brown skinned Black woman, and I have a young Black kid.
Thank you, Tamika. For accessibility purposes, I'm Juliet Romeo. I am a brown skinned woman, Black woman. Today I'm wearing my hair in a high ponytail with vibrant purple curls on top and a African print scarf wrapped around my hair. I'm also wearing a black t-shirt with a beige background in the back and a little frame that says sickle cell matters. Um, like Tamika said, we started this almost a year ago, and it's been really amazing. I'm also an executive producer for hashtag Autistic Out Loud, and these webinars are more than just like a conversation. It's about creating community spaces where we can deepen our understanding and share our lived experiences and continue building toward equity, visibility, and justice for Black autistic individuals and their families.
And so each session highlighted the themes of the film. So in particular, I just want to take a moment to share a little bit for those who may have missed it. Some of the webinars that we've done, who was part of it, is some of the action steps that was brought about in each webinar. So at the beginning, or I think it was June 25th, no, not June 25th, June 5th, 7th, I think. So the first one was on health equity. And so that was, we had, the discussion was moderated by Heather Clark, and we had panelists Ayana Davis, Kenneth Mims, and Camille Proctor. And so, really the essence of that discussion was about how, how do you access healthcare and how you go through the process of receiving diagnoses with, with it being in the Black community. And so that was a really great discussion. Some of the things that was discussed as far as action items was like writing letters and emails to local representatives because they said that there is a long wait to receive, to be tested as such, or even just receiving services in general. It could be a wait list and not many services available, especially if you're an adult. So, contacting local representatives to demand services and support. They also talked about the different, how different states access healthcare services and diagnoses. So, because our panelists are from all over the state and from all over the country. So, we talked about like in New York, California, New Jersey, where some of the people were from. And then they also discussed Georgia and Michigan. And so, um, so if you have questions or, how other people are accessing services, specifically when it comes to like support services or when it comes to receiving, a diagnosis, please look at that webinar. You can find all the webinars on our YouTube page, Autistic Out Loud documentary. Then after that, we had access to safe services and safety. So, and the people that spoke there was a great panel. Carlene Ponder was the panelist, the moderator. The panelist was Janelle Johnson and Annette Gaddis. And so they talked about, again, accessing services, but then also when it comes to criminal justice and how to interact with police and how do you remain safe in a world that, can be seen as being not compliant. We've seen what it could be done, what has been done to our community. And so, they talked about the wait list to the one before. Um, Also, they talked about churches. I know that's a big thing in our community as well. So, how do we access, church services and, remain safe? And then also, there was safety plans, and there were some resources too that was mentioned on, how to create that safety plan. That was specifically talked about with Janelle. So that was really a great discussion. So if you want to know more information about that, look that, watch that one. And then we talked about employment and education. And so that was led by um, Dr. Destiny Hoff. Um, and then the panelists was Denise Cash and DB Hale. And so, again, they talked about, resources and ways to deal with it, being Black and autistic when it comes to employment, when it comes to accessing IEPs and, 504 plans and different, education settings. So, it talked about ways to train HR staff, educate people. Also, Denise talked about how autistic individuals can observe where they want to go, like as far as with apply jobs, where they want to go to apply for a job and things to look out for and things like that. So that was some of the action steps that was discussed. So again, if you want to learn more about that, definitely recommend it. And then was mental health and well-being. That discussion was led by um, uh, okay, Taria Moultrie. Sorry, it's moderated by Maria Davis Pear from Autism in Black. And then Tiara Moultrie from Autism in the D, Morgan Janae, who's a young artist, and Fataji Kendrick Bailey, who's also an advocate and a mother. So they discussed, how to maintain well-being. We know it's easy to burn out. It can be stressful dealing with family and, things like that. So it was, they discussed how to manage and prevent burnout, how to improve access to adult diagnoses, how to, self advocate for yourself. and things like that. So how to maintain mental health and well-being. So that was a great discussion. And then we discussed building community and autistic Black joy. And that was a discussion that was led by TJ um, Jordan. Also, the panelists was Nick Sanchez, Kayla Smith, CJ Folks, and Sophia Muhammad. And so that was an excellent discussion. That was last week. And it just talked about how joy is a resistance, um, how to, build community within the Black autistic spaces, and sort of like research and policy, and how to be an ally and things like that. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely recommend that webinar. So we have created a resource and action stepped document. So Charlotte will put that in the chat. And so you can give you a rundown of all just what I described and some of the resources. Also have create within that document, with that document, I create a folder. So there's a folder that has this document in it, and then some of the flyers and things that was discussed. I know there is a protest that is happening in bed protest by disability democracy community, which was in July 12th. And so, and they're protesting against what the Robert Kennedy's, he wanted to do a collection, like a database of autistic people. So it's, protest against that. So please check out that folder and that document. And so, as you see, it's many, we had great Black autistic leaders, parents, scholars, community advocates who shaping what inclusion and disability justice look like.
Yep, exactly. I mean, these past 5 weeks have been a plethora of powerhouse people coming in to have discussions with us, and share their resources and their time, and share their stories. And tonight is no different. We are going to have such an amazing conversation about the documentary that is hashtag Autistic Out Loud. So whether you're joining us as a self-advocate, an ally, a parent, or a professional, or someone that's still learning, we welcome you tonight. And we thank you for showing up and leaning into this powerful dialogue. And we invite you to really listen deeply and ask questions and share what you learn. And even though this is our last webinar of the series, this is still just the beginning. Like Tamika talked about, take everything that you are learning here today in this webinar and take it out into your community and share with people. All of these things that we're doing, it is different ways to protest. Like we all don't have to protest the same. We may all not even be physically able to do that, but we all can do something. And this is a movement and a moment in so many different ways that we're going to learn and discuss to be able to be a part of the change for ourselves and for other people. So, like I said, it is just the beginning. And so remember that you can watch the entire series at your own pace because it's all on our YouTube channel, Autistic Out Loud documentary.
Yes. And so before we get started, I would like to thank our program coordinator, my friend, Charlotte Batchelor. Yes, yes. Thank you, Charlotte, for being part of this. I met Charlotte a couple of years back as an intern. So when I thought about people who could, once I received the funding to do this webinar series from Next for Autism, I was like, well, who can help, be put this all together? And so Charlotte was the first person that came to my mind. So she's excellent. And so, thank you, Charlotte, and thank you for all the panelists. I see some of the names of who participated. So, thank you. And thank you to those who, some of the people who've came to all of the webinars. I see some of the names too. I recognize that. So, thank you. And I just really hope that have learned and through this series. And thank you to our panelists, our main subjects of the film here today, Nancy, Jennifer, and Yolanda. That is three of the four. So there will be a fourth person that we're in talks with now to feature in the film. So this is just some of the people. But just thank you for allowing us to tell your stories and being here with us today, and the ASL interpreters, and the company that is providing our ASL. Their great company is Entertaining Interpreters. Am I getting that correct, Juliet? Yes, yes. Yes. So thank you, Amber, who is the owner and founder of it, for gracing us and provide us the ASL interpreting. So, but before I give it to Charlotte so we can start the discussion. We also have a survey. So we've been, making sure that's been posted and shared in our chat. So we definitely want to know your feedback. So if you haven't shared your feedback as of yet with this series, or even make sure you fill it out, at the end as well, so we know, what your thoughts on this, and if you want to be part of the documentary or want to be part of our journey, please, fill that survey out and indicate that, and then also we are now um, accepting donations, and so if you would like to help us bring this documentary to light, Charlotte also will put in the chat of where you can donate to us to help us get the first phase of the documentary completed. So, without further ado, I give it to Charlotte.
Thank you, Tamika, for that warm introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlotte Batchelor. I am the project coordinator here at Autistic Out Loud. It has been my pleasure curating these webinars for you, finding autistic thought leaders, speakers, parents, and advocates to come and share their experience with you. And I will be your moderator for tonight. My visual description: I am a light-skinned Black woman with locks in two ponytails. I'm wearing clear glasses and I have on a floral dress. So tonight's webinar will focus on our three main subjects and our two executive producers. So I would like to kick things off by introducing our panelists. So first we have Yolanda Harris. Yolanda Harris, a 65-year-old autistic Black woman, wasn't diagnosed autistic until 2018 at age 58. This revelation transformed her perspective and inspired her to create Training Phase, a mission driven company dedicated to empowering neurodivergent individuals, promoting their full inclusion in the workplace and society at large. Her advocacy for neurodivergent employees, the challenges she faces growing her business as a Black autistic woman, and her fight to ensure that others like her find their voices in environments that often overlook them. Next, we have Nancy Tanis and Ian Tanis. Nancy Tanis is a proud mom with Trinidadian heritage. Her son Ian is a non speaking autistic teen. All of Ian's life, Nancy had to advocate for him, starting with his autism diagnosis and receiving all of the services to make sure he doesn't fall through the cracks. Now, Nancy continues to fight for inclusion and access to healthcare and community services for Ian and other children of color in Brooklyn, New York, like him. Next, we have Jennifer White Johnson. Jennifer White Johnson, a 40 something Afro Latina disability art activist, is a fierce advocate for autism awareness, disability pride, and social justice. A mother to an autistic preteen son, she/they embrace the motto, mothering as an act of resistance. Jennifer believes that nurturing her son's identity and celebrating his neurodivergence is a radical act in a society that often stigmatizes both autism and Blackness. Traveling across the country, Jennifer and her son use art to teach pride, self love, and resilience within the disability community. Her work encourages Black and Brown families to resist societal pressures and celebrate their children's unique gifts and identities. Finally, we have our two executive producers, Tamika Shittigen Spruce. At 6 months old, Tamika was left paralyzed from mid chest down after a car accident. Through her experiences growing up as a Black woman with a physical disability, she has developed a strong passion for disability advocacy and media. She studied broadcast television and journalism at Oakland University. Through her story, she discovered the importance of telling a person's story and has released two short films, including My Girl Story, about two African American girls from Detroit fighting to become the young women they want to become. Her mission is to advocate, educate, and create media representation of the BIPOC and disability communities in thought provoking, unapologetic, and engaging ways. Last but not least, we have Juliet Romeo. Born in Trinidad by way of New York, Juliet Romeo is an award winning filmmaker living in South Florida. Romeo often uses her life experience as a Caribbean woman of color with a disability to create a unique and authentic narratives that positively impact people's lives. Romeo strongly believes in the importance of setting the scene to tell a great story. She enjoys writing romantic dramedies that are woman centered and empowering, focusing on social justice issues and bringing awareness to diverse disabled voices. And finally, a little bit about myself. I am a late diagnosed autistic adult, writer, and speaker. My work has been featured at Autism in Black, the Spectrum Talk podcast, and currently I am a long-term trainee with the Michigan Leadership in Education and Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities program. So first, we are going to kick it off with a Q&A for our presenters. So our first question is, as executive producers of hashtag Autistic Out Loud, what inspired you to create a documentary centering Black autistic voices?
I'm
Okay,
gonna let
so
you take that. Yeah.
okay. So what really started just goes back to, the lack of representation, growing up with my, disability and then be, a Black girl. I never seen anything in media, television or film or anything that really, that I can look up to and I can relate to. So I was born in 1985, the 80s baby. So I grew up in I remember a little bit late 80s, but mostly definitely the 90s. So, but there was nothing there really. And if you did have disabled people, on screen, off the time it was people who did not have a disability play that character, like Ray and other Phil's radio, those are, Black disabled people, and things. But again, it's played by non-disabled people. So just really grew a passion to advocate. So back with my day job, which is through Michigan Disability Rights Coalition in 2017, I was an independent contractor at that time. Was maybe 2019. I was an independent contractor, and I did a 5-part series about being Black and disabled. So, get to create that representation and things. And, one of the people I interviewed was the great Anita Cameron. And so just, interviewing her and her tell her story, I love her, so much. And so, just really like, wow, we really need to know stories, And so part of like, in my bio is to create media representation of our, community. So we ourselves can see our stories, on screen and, our families can see it and the world can kind of give an insight into what our world is like. So that's the reason why.
Yeah. I Tamika brought me on afterwards, and uh once she told me about the project, I was definitely like, absolutely. And I think when we were for our first meeting, it wasn't even necessarily about, it was for something else. And then Tamika was like, I do need a co-executive producer. And I really think like after talking to you, this might be a really great fit. And I was like, absolutely, because we met through a fellowship that was for disabled filmmakers. And we, I know for me, I got to see so much variety and diverse disabilities, and to meet so many people for me, with my disability, I have a chronic pain illness. I have sickle cell disease, and it can be very just kind of lonely. You feel like you're very isolated. You're the only person that's going through this. And I've met other people now who had the same like conversations and ideas, that they feel like they're in this alone. Yet here we are together in this room, being able to be creative, and now we're collaborating with each other on each other's projects and things like that. And I realized how important it is. And also learning so much about neurodiversity, you realize, okay, wait a minute, is this what I've been experiencing or someone else in my family has been experiencing? And you realize that it is more prevalent than society is really being honest about. And how can we, especially from the BIPOC side of it all, because we always get the short end of the stick, or the we're in the back of the range. We never know what's going on until it's already done. Now we're getting the remnants. So from that perspective, it's like, how how can we support each other, regardless of what the disability is? This is all a movement, um, that no matter what I feel like this documentary is so important, but it's like we could have selected almost anything else, and it would have been like, this is important that we need to know. I feel like it's going to be so relevant for every other disabled person in society, to be able to take this information and move it forward in their perspective, disease, illness, disability, because they're just kind of putting us all in one box at this point, and saying we're moving backwards, and we're not. We This is, like I said, it's a movement for us to really, uh, a form of protest, to let people know that we're here and be artistic and out loud, honestly, out loud.
Thank you, ladies. Those were great responses. And as a late diagnosed autistic adult living with co-occurring conditions, I can definitely agree being Black can be lonely in a world that was not built for you. Being autistic and being disabled in other ways can be isolating when the mainstream does not look like you, especially for women, where we make a small percentage of that. So I think that is why increasingly that this project is so timely and will be so impactful once it's released. You kind of answered my second question. My next question is, what does it mean to live out loud, especially in a media landscape that often erases our experiences?
Um, yeah, that's a good one. I think it's, well, to me, it's like living out loud is be not asking for permission, which is hard, which is really hard in a sense, when we live in a world that's not, built for you accessibility wise and just in all different phases. So it's like, I know in my life and trying to encourage, others is to not ask for, permission, be yourself unapologetically, be a self advocate, be that advocate for yourself, for your community. Tell people what your needs are. Like I said, no, it's challenging, but it's like, it's puts you in a place. It's like, I know for me, speaking for me, if I did not speak up, if I did not advocate for myself, I will be, somewhere in a corner, it's just, it's just, I wouldn't get the life that I feel like I deserve. And so, it's like encouraging others when it comes to living out loud, fight for what you want. You know, you have the right to have everything that everyone else have. Don't feel like, oh, because you're disabled or you're autistic or whatever, you know, black, I can't do this or I'm not, or people gonna say whatever. No, you have the right to like everybody else. And
Right.
so, just that to me, that's what it means to, live out loud. And that's why we renamed it, like Autistic Out Loud, because it's like we're here, we exist, our community exists, and we're going to be out loud and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's about making sure that our voices are heard, but also, like Tamika talked about with the advocacy, sometimes I feel like self-advocacy is important, but advocating for one another and building community is something that I think is what it also means to live out loud because we we cannot wait for permission and we cannot, when we're told, well, we don't have this access or we don't have this, we build it. I think that's what that looks like. Building the space in the community and the access that you're asking for. Um, Throughout this entire series, I've heard stories of individuals who had a need and couldn't find it to be met and was like, well, I'm going to do this myself and create this space for me. I think Yolanda's story is very like a great example of that. Um, and then creating that space and realizing, yeah, you not only did you create something so that you can have that access, but guess what? There's all these other people that need that as well. And I think that's what living out loud is about.
Yep, yep, building that community and having joy. That's why with the film too, having joy, all the different aspects, of it. So with having, autistic black joy, having black joy, which Jennifer, she got, that's what she does, with her art. That's why I love it, because it's like, joy is a form of resistance, because people
Yeah.
try to strip you away from that or try to attempt to without giving you services or make you feel like you're less than. So, finding joy, which you can, and being autistic and having that joy and leading into that is a beautiful experience as well.
Thank you. And I think both of those stories speaks to the testament of how I met Tamika when I was a college student at Michigan State. and I wanted to work for a disability justice organization. So I emailed Tamika's boss and was like, y'all got money for an intern? And thankfully they had the money, and Tamika led me on and has put me on to so many opportunities. So just being willing to speak into existence those opportunities and being willing to put your name out there to advocate for yourself and kind of building the bridge and walking along it at the same time as things we have to do as people in the Black autistic community. Two more quick questions. Why did you pick these individuals to participate in the documentary? And what do you hope audiences, especially Black families and Black autistic individuals, take away from this documentary?
Okay, let's see who that. I would say Yolanda, go that line. So Yolanda, I've Yolanda's great. She was a panelist. I was at Yolanda, I think last year for MDRC. It talked about her life experiences, being a late diagnosed. I think that in the community, and I've been thinking about my own family, and when we look about within the Black community, autism and being autistic was always there. But I know based upon my own research and understanding that which we will explore in the film that Black people for so long, up until maybe, I don't know, the 90s, was told you can't have autism. And so they were totally excluded. And so, if you had a family member who was autistic or had a developmental disability or whatever the case may be, especially if it was not a parent, it's easy for like me, like fiscal, what's going on. So you can say, oh, that she has, spinal cord injury, whatever. But when you have not a parent disability that people can't physically see, but they, have different may not understand, you regulate like, oh, that person is just special, or they get misdiagnosed and things like that. And, just talking with Yolanda, and what she's able to do now is just, remarkable, and it's great. And I believe that, people will be able to relate to Yolanda and her story, and and not be, and just like see, how do you deal with family members? How do you deal with people who may even still deny it, or when it comes to employment, how do you deal with that when people don't want to provide accommodations, or you struggling in that, or whatever the case may be? So Yolanda, she's great, and I love her, and I'm just so happy that she, came on, met with her, and came on to tell her story. So that's why, picked Yolanda. And Jennifer is another, great activists in the community, great with their art. Just Knox is great. And so just again, what I shared before, that, that joy and that pride, and just being unapologetic. And, I know it can be hard sometimes if you have a son, or have a child that might be diagnosed with, autism or have a disability, but not like, wallow in that, or just, not wallow, it's not word, but just, I mean, just, feel don't want to give the opportunities or accept what other people say, about your child. But she really took matters into her own hands. And she'll speak more about it, but she said mothering is a form of a resistance too. So, just I know her story, they'll be able to relate to it. Mothers will be able to relate to it. And how can you know, raise a son, a child, a Black child, be proud in who they
Yeah.
think. So that's good. And then Nancy, She's great. I know Juliet, knows her, but, and brought her onto the project. But Nancy is great because she, represents many mothers, many Black mothers that I know who had to and continue to fight for their children to not, like we said about, not fall through the cracks. It is so hard in the system, education and supportive services. It can be really hard. So she, continues to fight not only for her child, but for children like her. She has, which we'll show in the film too, I know, but she has a yearly festival for
Carnival.
carnival. Yes, yes. Thank you for this. Yes, carnival for Caribbean children with autistic children and disabled children to take pride in their Caribbean heritage. And so, that's beautiful too, because we know being Black is not a monolith. So that's why, Julia and I also was very intentional to show different versions of being Black, even. So you have, Jennifer White, who is, she'll go into it, but Afro Latina, and then, Yolanda, Black American, and then you got Nancy that is, Trinidad, Trinidadian American. So just showing all sides of being Black as well.
And also, especially with Nancy, and I don't want to get too touchy-feely, but I have known Nancy since we were children. And I think it's kind of um, a testament to autism, to now we grow up as adults, and Nancy has a child that is autistic. And watching her, I mean, she's always been a person that wears her heart on her sleeve. She loves you. She's gonna let you know about it. And I see that with her son, and I watch it in her social media posts where she is fighting for um the the rights of the rights for her children, and for her children to have what they need in order to um, move forward in life. And she's very outspoken about that. She's always been very outspoken. And for us to now have this project, um, I told Tamika, like, oh my God, I know someone. And that's the thing, is that I feel like people can watch this and they're gonna say, I know someone like that, or I have a neighbor like that. And even specific people that may know someone, but they don't know much about it, or they don't have any awareness about it, or they have maybe some misjudgment about it, to see this and create this awareness of, now I understand what my neighbor might be going through, what this person in church might be dealing with, or just the person on my job. Like, it's going to create this idea of just having, I want us to have some normalcy about it, right? And create some normalcy about what autism is and what it isn't, right? Let's get these misjudgments out of here. Um, and just watching Nancy pretty much almost half of my life, and as a friend, and then also now as a mother, and watch her grow as a mother, raising her sons. Um, I think it was a perfect fit. And yes, this amazing program that she does every year during Labor Day with the children. And it just came from such an authentic place. Like, it's just so Nancy to have done an event like that and create so much joy. Like, it is definitely like the epitome of, like, the definition of Black autistic joy, to see what this carnival is like. It's so fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your insights. Now that we've heard from our producers, we are going to turn it over to our subjects of the documentary. So, my first question for the panelists is, When did you first realize that your story as a Black autistic or neurodivergent person or a parent of a Black autistic child was missing from the mainstream conversation? Anybody can feel free to jump in, feel free to pass it on to your fellow panelists. We just want this to be a very natural conversation. And also feel free to introduce yourself if there's anything else you would like to add.
I'll go. And I noticed how everyone was describing themselves and what they were wearing, so I'm gonna kind of follow along. I am a Black woman, person of color, light skin, and I'm wearing a polka dot dress, black with white polka dots. I seem to be obsessed with black and white and polka dots. And I remember my mother used to dress me and my other two sisters. We're not twins or triplets, but bought, we wore the same dresses. And so my sisters don't know this, but the dress that I'm wearing, I bought two others. And so maybe they'll wear them one day and we all go and kind of go back to our childhood and dress alike in our polka dot dresses. So I'm wearing a black and white polka dot dress. So getting back to the question, uh, Yolanda Harris speaking here. Um, I think for me, when I was diagnosed at 58 with Asperger's, and that's a term we don't use anymore. We can get into that another time, but the realization for me, missing from any type of mainstream conversations about neurodiversity, that was a gradual process for me, and it was very profound. Um, because it was like an awakening, because for so many years, going undiagnosed, I had to navigate my way. And I'll talk about the workplace because being 65 now and working my first job at 15 at McDonald's and just taking me back and gradually through my career as it progressed, um, I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like I did not belong. I still struggle to this day with social cues, communication, things that are constantly being misinterpreted. Um, and so it's that lifetime of experiences that I had. Now, since getting my diagnosis, it makes sense. However, when we look at when we talk about experiences of Black neurodivergent individuals, and particularly older adults like myself and women, we are significantly underrepresented because of our unique challenges and the misdiagnosis you talked about earlier, the cultural stigmas. And when we talk about systemic bias in the workplace, when we talk about employment, I got stories. I can talk about that experience. So I think even within the community itself, it is so critical that we recapture those missing narratives. So that's it. I'm not sure if I answered that question correctly
Yes,
or
that was great,
okay.
Yolanda. Thank you. Jennifer or Nancy, do you would like to share your perspective?
Yeah, I would love to, offer some just words of solidarity, and I'm just so overjoyed to be in this space. And as a quick just image visual description of myself, I'm a caramel skinned Black and Puerto Rican woman. Behind me is artwork, colorful, vibrant artwork, um, a Black Disabled Lives Matter solidarity symbol, and a black and white pendant that says create and resist, and a whole bunch of other artwork that's behind me. And I'm also wearing Fannie Lou Hamer collaged earrings. Fannie Lou is one of my favorite, disabled ancestors, and mother to the community and voting rights activist. And phenomenal human. And then I'm wearing a t-shirt that says, be your loudest hype woman. So yeah, solidarity to all my disabled and neurodivergent comrades that are joining us this evening. And yeah, I mean, I feel similar to what Yolanda was saying, and many of us have been saying at this point, um, is that whenever we feel, I feel like just right, being Black and autistic, Black and disabled, living in America, um, we're constantly in a space of, living on the margins. And so we're always looking for other communities that we can resonate with, that we see, positive reflections of ourselves. Um, and, growing up as an undiagnosed, neurodivergent kid and thinking that I was crazy and thinking that, I was over eccentric and being told that I talk too much all the time. And right, we're always kind of looking for like those spaces of like acceptance. And I feel like when it became my story is when I was given the opportunity to actually mother a child who was a little reflection of myself, and who was diagnosed as autistic when he was 3 years old. And then as he continued to get older and navigate the world, I was like, I see a lot of similarities in myself, and I see those in him. So if I'm supposed to be told that I have to cure or fix him, then what is that saying about my community? Like, am I saying that I also need to be cured and fixed as well? And so I knew that I didn't want to perpetuate that narrative in the way that I was raising my child. So I knew that I wanted to use like my weapon, like my voice, which is art and photography and design, to really, hold space for the lack of representation. And I really love that, um, you know, what makes this space so profound and important is that we're leading the charge, and that we're not watching someone else tell our stories, or we're not watching someone telling, you know, um, celebrate us through their like non-disabled lens. Like, I feel like the reason why this space is so amazing is that because we're leading the conversation, and we're in charge of like how we kind of talk about like ourselves and about our lives. um yeah, and so I'm just happy that like I didn't really want to perpetuate oppression and trauma that was present in certain times of my life, mostly through the community, like the educational community, where I felt like, othered and different and excluded. Um, so I feel like that is really important, to really, to really amplify that in storytelling, especially through visual media, which is, what this documentary is. There's like a huge disconnect. And you alluded to that earlier, Tamika, when you felt like, why are we watching other people like play disabled? Why are they cosplaying as like disabled people? Why are they cosplaying as like autistic people? And so when it became time for me to, um, you know, actually visualize art and storytelling and storybooks and things that were supposed to exist, that were supposed to represent like my child, and I didn't see that. I was like, okay, something has to change and something needs to be done, to really address like the lack of visibility. um so yeah, so that's kind of like what art and design kind of really do for me. So that was like my aha moment.
Thank you. Nancy, do you have
And can
anything
I
you would
just,
like to add?
oh,
Hi. Yes, I do. Just a few words. Um, I'd like to introduce myself. Once again, my name is Nancy. For descriptive purposes, I'm wearing a bright pink top. I'm brown sugar colored, and I have almost like the same color here. I'm also wearing some tortoise glasses, and sitting in my car with my family because I have to go and pick up my younger son from his reading group. I would like to share with the group at this time to answer the question. Um, one instance that stuck in my mind, and I think I mentioned this to Juliet before, when my eldest son Ian, when he had his first IEP meeting in preschool, um, I sat with the district representative, and it was myself and his dad. And, I was there telling them all of the things that I felt that my son needed. I had been coached by a lovely advocate for children with disabilities, and she told me when you go in there, you ask them for everything because they're going to try to take away everything. So I went in there and I was just talking to them and telling them, that I felt that he deserved a chance and I wanted him to thrive and I did not want him to fall through the cracks of the system. And as I was speaking to this lady, when I was done, she turned and she looked at me, she tilted her head and she said, "Wow, you're so articulate." And it blew me away in that moment that she would even say something in that manner. To me, here I am advocating for my son as best as I could. And, he chose to, because I was using certain words. I don't know. Like, to me, I didn't feel like, I felt like she almost expected me to come in there, I don't know, talking a certain way. Does that mean, should that determine the type of services my son should get? And in that moment, all kinds of bells and whistles went off in my head. And I knew that it was, it was going to be it was going to be a long road ahead. And it was going to be, I'm going to have to put some war paint on my face and, sometimes get down with these people and let them know that he's not going to fall through the cracks of the system every day, every day. Right before I got onto this webinar, I had to I'm constantly having meetings, talking to people and fighting for him to be seen. I don't want him to be looked at as someone that is, you know, I want him, to know that his limitations are limitless. So that's it. That's all.
Before we move on, because I think Nancy transitioned us into our next question, did anybody have anything else to add?
I just wanted to briefly add, to what Jennifer was saying, and when we talk about missing from mainstream conversations, is because even today I still mask when I'm in certain spaces and certain places, and it's easy to mask because others don't realize it and I don't share it. And it's still uncomfortable because I can't be my authentic self. So these are things that are missing from mainstream conversations is when we talk about authenticity and creating a safe space for others. That's definitely what's missing.
And I think that, like I said, that moves on to our next question. Advocating and being able to bring our authentic selves to the table, or allowing our children to bring their authentic selves to the table, does not come without its fair of struggle. Like Nancy was saying, advocating for her son at the IEP table, at the schoolhouse, in employment and education. So what does it mean to advocate unapologetically for yourself, your child, your community, or someone you are a caregiver to?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like an awesome question, and this is Jen speaking. So one of the ways that I've been advocating for 12 years for my son, who's, going to be in the 7th grade next year, and middle school is a whole ball game, and the IEP process continues to like shift, and there's tons of like hills and valleys and waves. And so what we've been doing since he was in kindergarten is that we've been hacking the IEP. So we've been taking like the dense, overwhelming documentation and the paperwork, and we've been kind of remixing it and creating like our own radical version of the IEP. And we call it an advocate zine. And so it's authored completely by Knox. And so there are different sections of, it's like a little foldable 8.5 by 11 document that folds into like a little pocket zine. So something that you can just like, stick in your pocket or quickly give to, like his teachers, his special educators, the school counselor, even the assistant principal had a copy. And so on each page, it contains information about his access needs, his favorite things, how he prefers to be supported, his stims and behaviors and self-soothing mechanisms, and then also there are ways that it's like a list of like things that he would prefer, like whether they're like breaks, or whether there are breathing breaks or stim breaks and brain breaks. And so I we like I had this idea, and then when he became independent enough to articulate like his own wants and needs, it ended up becoming like a really beautiful opportunity for him to just get to know like his autistic joys and struggles and ways that he wanted to like show up for himself. But then also there, it's like an accountability contract essentially that is asking for his teachers and the advocates within the school system. It's like, hey, like here's this document that explains everything about me. I authored it. It's not full of like dense like language that because as we know, like our kids are barely at the IEP meetings. They're not even really like in there to like talk about like how they want to be treated, and it's kind of like everything's written about them, around them. And so what ended up becoming like a really fun like just method and strategy for us as a family, another mom ended up like creating her own version, and then we teamed up together and then created a website where folks could actually download a template, and they can actually like fill it out. It could be like digitally designed, or it can be printed, and like the responses and answers can be written in based on like your autistic kids like desires and access needs. And it's awesome because like it obviously like it changes and it shifts like every year per like what the need is. But so I feel like when you can use your skill sets and your like your artistic creative weapon to kind of create like a very radical like method and tool, and when you make it accessible so that like the collective can access it, because like I feel like collective liberation really can't be created in a silo. So it's so cool that like being able to kind of use like the element of design justice, um using graphic design, because again, like graphic design is always so rooted in, okay, well, how can we fix the problem versus how can we just design like to make sure that your disability like is celebrated and shined, and that folks can really understand it. So yeah, so I'll drop a link in the chat to the advocate zine so that you can see what it looks like. But that's it.
Thank you, Jennifer. And for all of our panelists, we will drop links at the end of this webinar so you can follow them, learn more about their work. And if you miss the links in the chat, we'll also send out a document. I actually want to pass this on to Yolanda to kind of talk about the training and advocacy work she does, especially advocating maybe on the older side for people who are in the workplace, or maybe older adults who are coming into their autistic identity.
Well, I'm so glad that that question was presented and asked, because um, one of the things in terms of having to really navigate as neurodivergent person in the workplace, with new unique challenges, and for me to advocate unapologetically. For myself as a Black neurodivergent person, it's really about confidently asserting my needs, which I do unapologetically, and setting boundaries and making sure that my voice is heard, it is respected in places and spaces where historically um, not being able to accommodate neurodivergent people and even often marginalize Black individuals. So, what that means is to advocate, is to embrace my authentic self, to understand in terms of my strengths, my challenges, openly communicate without apologizing and any shame, because we get enough of that from the neurotypical world or community, especially for those who just don't understand or who choose not to educate themselves about individuals like us. So it's really all about educating on neurodiversity, racial biases that's happening, where it comes to we need to really start pushing for inclusive policies, demanding equitable treatment, and all while recognizing the unique intersection of being both Black and neurodivergent in a world that's not even built for us. And so the advocacy that I do is not just about personal gain for me, it's really about paving the way for future generations and creating a more inclusive and understanding environment. And I tell you why, because there are so many individuals. I'm a baby boomer. It's first of all, autism, neurodivergent, it didn't just come about where it's just started affecting or impacting or happening to our children. It's been around for a long time. We just didn't have a name for it. And so there are individuals that are out there that do not want to share this because of the shame, because of the stigma. And so by me, really helping to pave that way, one of the things that I've done is and it's a significant achievement. And I say that it's a significant achievement, and that was becoming the founder and honorary co-advisor for the Neurodivergent Student Alliance at Oakland Community College. And what happened with that in this role, by having the privilege to actually set that foundation and provide support, guidance, advocacy. And it's really all about helping the neurodivergent students at the college who are able to create that safe space for those who even identify as neurodivergent and to be able to connect with others that really share that same experience. And it's really all about how the brain is just so wired differently than the mainstream itself. So, having that safe space, creating that safe space for the young adults and even older adults. If someone were to call me up today and say, "Hey, I think I'm neurodivergent," you know what? I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to create the safest space for them as possible. And working with, a client at training phase, we're getting to that step in that process of this beautiful mind of a young lady who is brilliant by all means, and understanding her struggles, what she's going through. And when I tell you, brilliant, beautiful, and to create that safe space. So again, getting back to, OCC or Oakland Community College, because we were able to create that safe space for the students there, they feel validated, they feel supported. And when we talk about their experiences where they do things on their own terms, when it comes to fostering inclusivity and advocating for accessibility and empowering, the students to really thrive. And we talk about academically as well as social. socially. And that's why it's so important to have social emotional learning in the classrooms, in the colleges, at the campuses, at the universities. And I'm also proud to say, and this is not a shameless plug, this is, I being a board member for Mitchell College, that's known. And they always say it's their best kept secret, no longer a secret, where they actually, when I say support the neurodivergent students at their college, that's something that, again, I'm proud to be a part of that. And so really the goal is to create the opportunities for not just students, but my peers and older adults like myself, because I can tell you right now, they're out there. They are out there. And the way I kind of visualize it, the Simpsons, you all see how Homer Simpson kind of fades back into the grass. There's this one scene, and he fades back into the bushes where he becomes totally non-existent. Guess what? That is how older neurodivergent, older autistic adults that are like myself, that are on the spectrum, that can fit into the mainstream, that mask very well. But on the inside, it's a struggle. It is a struggle. So working with the young people and making sure that they feel seen, they're heard, and they're valued, and just putting together workshops and collaborative events for them, just to make sure that they are able to thrive at the college and be their authentic selves at the same time. So did I answer that? I always have to ask, did I
Yes,
answer that?
yes. It's
Okay.
no syllabus, it's
All
no
right.
A+ grade, and that was a great question, especially because advocacy looks very different when you're in the higher education environment, where the
Hmm.
parent is at the IEP table from K through 12, but now in higher ed, the onus is on that young adult or in the workplace. And so having people
Yeah.
like Yolanda and training phase and like Jennifer's IEP advocacy hack, that helps people have a little one more tool in their toolkit that they can use as they
Mhm.
progress. Nancy, did you have
Yeah, and
anything?
I will like to
Sorry.
add, can I just add real quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Nancy, because I also teach at a university, at Rasmussen University, and adjunct faculty. And I share immediately with the students that I'm neurodivergent. And when I started doing that, I've been with the college for years and teaching. And the moment I say that and talk about that in the live classroom, say, hey, this is a safe space. Be yourself. I'm going to be myself. And they absolutely love that.
And I can say too, a part of my late diagnosis journey was one of my professors sharing that she was late diagnosed.
Mhm.
And that opened up the door for me to even being able to find an evaluator that took my insurance or knowing what to expect. So it really only takes the power of one person to be vulnerable, to stand up, to do what's right. I'm not going to hold y'all any longer. I'm going to pass it back over to Nancy.
Okay. One thing I would like to share, in that trying to answer the question, and Tamika, you and Julia, you both spoke on it. I started a children's carnival group for children in Brooklyn here, and that's something up until 3 years ago that had never been done. Not the group that I started is specifically for children with special needs. Um, my son Ian was the inspiration for me to start that group, because growing up a Caribbean American young woman, I grew up around a lot of culture, and I'm always constantly trying to find ways to bridge cause with culture, cause with culture, and that created the exact avenue that I wanted to to highlight. And one of the main goals was to try to encourage Caribbean mothers like myself who have children with autism and other special needs to know that you don't have to put them in the corner. You understand? They want to dance, they want to, sing, they want to wave a flag, and they very much so enjoy the culture. So why say, oh, just because they're neurodivergent, or oh, he's autistic, he cannot take the noise. There's some children that cannot tolerate noise, but what we have done to incorporate and to help them, we have headphones. We got people to donate headphones for the children where they can still hear the music, but it's not loud. We also encourage, support professionals to come out and assist the children on that day. I want the parents, I was just having a discussion with one of the parents today, and I was saying to them, I want the parents to be able to stand back like how you would sit in a recital and look at your kids perform. I want them to be able to have that experience. I don't want them to have to feel like, okay, I have to hold on to my son or hold on to my daughter as they're dancing or they're performing. I want the children to have that the same feeling that I get when I participate in the carnival. It's a feeling of liberation. It's a feeling of freedom. It's a feeling of euphoria. Those are the things that I want the children to feel, and they do. They do in so many ways. They do. So, yeah, that was one thing that I had a dream. Literally, I was talking to someone who is a mass band leader here. He has a stilt walking group for young kids here in New York. And I said to him, I said, I would like to have a section for children, to participate, in the carnival instead of having them stand on the sidelines and watch other kids by and wave at them. Let them be a part of it. Let them feel like they're a part of what, of us, right? Because they came from us, right? And, I'm thinking, okay, maybe next year. He was like, okay, let me talk to my team. Let me see what they say. And he called me back almost like within an hour and a half, 2 hours. And he's like, okay, yeah, we're going to do it this year. We're going to do it now. And I was like, what? Talk about your dreams coming true in front of your eyes. And I didn't realize that until the children actually crossed the stage, because it's like a stage and they get to perform. They parade through the streets, and then it culminates at a stage. And when the announcer, announced that, these are children that are neurodivergent, let's give it up for, the Kaisukamoka Jumbies who are ensuring that Carnival is all inclusive. I crossed that stage with those kids in tears, because living out your dreams, living out loud, that's the feeling that I will never forget. Never, ever, ever. And to see the expression on the children's faces, they were happy. They wanted to participate. They were dancing, and, they felt included. And I've had the parents thank me. They're, so many people. So, again, grateful to be a part of, this project, and to share my story with everyone.
That was a word, Nancy. I think oftentimes people, especially in our Black community, want to separate the child's disability from their Blackness. And we cannot separate a child's race from their disability. Their disability does not make them less Black, less Caribbean, less Latino. It's a part of our community that's always been there, even though we haven't acknowledged that. So it's so important for our children to have spaces where they can come up in the culture and feel a part of the culture, when the culture can often be exclusionary or punitive towards them. And you talking about, I'm in a sorority and our motto is culture is pride, pride is success. So if you can raise up a child to be proud in their disability, proud of their culture, you are raising a well-adjusted person who's ready to take on the world and who knows the importance of joy. So we're on our second to last question. How do you protect and celebrate joy, especially autistic joy, in a world that often centers struggle and stigma? And we know that going on with the recent Medicaid cuts, with the terroristic reign of the unqualified RFK Jr. and Donald Trump wreaking havoc, but you still got to make time for joy. especially, I think, especially for parents raising children, you don't want your children to be scared of the world. You want them to have an awareness. But how do you protect your joy and inspire that in your children?
Yeah. And thank you for this question. This is Jen speaking. And yeah, I mean, I continue to be so just overjoyed by this conversation and so many affirmations from, you know, Yolanda speaking as an adjunct professor and Nancy speaking on as, as a mother. And I feel like those two worlds like intersect for me. As an art educator that also teaches graphic design and photography and works with countless disabled students, Black disabled students, and then also being a mother, like showing up as an art educator, is like quintessential to that statement of mothering as an act of resistance, because autistic kids in the classroom, autistic kids in the higher education classroom, right? They're so used to being stigmatized, and Charlotte, you were talking about that earlier because of the, you know, the joys or the traumas of being Black and autistic, or being Black and disabled, and what that means, especially if they felt like they could never really intersect the two worlds. So I feel like I get most happy when I'm able to utilize art so that my students can actually feel like, oh wow, like I can actually use, and I don't need someone's permission to actually create the art in the world that I really want to see. Especially, since 33% of like main characters in kids literature is filled with a ton of like white characters that represent that represent the main character, and then you have like 4% that represent like the disability community, where the disabled kid is actually the main character and like kids lit. And so I feel like from childhood into adulthood, like we're so used to not necessarily being prioritized or being seen within like mainstream media. So making art, and especially zines, and zine is like short for like magazine, or almost it's almost kind of like an artist book, that where disabled folks can feel like they have the opportunity to kind of recontextualize, to rewrite the narrative, to kind of reclaim the narrative, um, especially since we're so used to being written out of the narrative. um so I feel like I get like joyful. And then especially Nancy, like being in New York, I've been to Parsons has an amazing disabled fashion student program, and I was invited to lead a zine making workshop there at Parsons just last year. And it was so much fun meeting with the students who, again, were as disabled students, they were prioritized, and they felt like, wow, like here I have an educator who's, yeah, openly identifying as having a disability, neurodivergent, that's prioritizing like art and design, and encouraging me to actually utilize that identity like in the artwork that I'm producing, and like the spaces that I want to build. So it's being able to see those little instances of like disabled joy, and that spark is what really gives me joy. Because in college, in middle school, elementary school, I didn't always necessarily feel like I had that artistic support. So as I'm navigating as a disabled adult, like a neurodivergent adult, what brings me joy is knowing that I can reshift like the focus, and I can really guide students, and to kind of guide them along pathways of like, again, like autistic joy as an act of resistance. So that's what really makes me super excited for the future.
So sorry, y'all. I have a summer cold, and I don't think you want to see me sniffling and clear my throat. So I had to take a little step away. Does anybody else want to talk about Black autistic joy and how they inspire it?
I was going to see if Nancy was going to, answer the question.
Um, well, most recently, I would say, so Ian is 15 years old, and from the time he started to be able to show emotion appropriately, and I would say every time I see his smile, uh, I don't know, there's something about his smile. I have my cousin here in the car with me. She's visiting from Lisbon, and I'm sure she would say the same thing. There's something about his smile and his eyes that just bring me, like, it just puts the fire that I need to continue to do what I have to do. And, it's not to take away anything from my younger son, but there's something about Ian when I see him get up every morning and go out into a world, like someone else said, in a world that's not designed for them, in a world that there may be people that may not understand what their world is. They have to struggle every day to figure out this world in which we live in. But there are a lot of people that don't take time to figure out what their world is like, and he still gets up regardless. I faced most recently a lot of challenges, personal, mostly work related. And, I questioned so many different things. And I must say to all of you that he and my other son, they are the reason why I get up every day and I keep trying. Trust me, when in the Caribbean, they have a saying, the devil is busy. You understand? The devil has been busy, but God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. That's all I want to say.
Amen.
And if I could definitely piggyback off of what Nancy just said when she said God is good all the time. My pure joy, just being able to just wake up every morning and say, I'm 65 years old. That's pure joy that God lets me live another day for me. That's pure joy because my faith is strong. And because of that, and again, being able to now, and I want people to understand that this joy has not always been here. It just started coming recently because of the challenges, because of the struggles, and because family, friends still not accepting that. And that's okay. That's okay. I still get all that support from them. And that brings me joy knowing that I have that support. I think it's because of late diagnosis. Looked at, well, yeah, we knew you were different. Okay, so what? You were a drama queen. Yeah, so what? And that's all, that's what they see, and that's okay. But I think for me, I didn't accept that. They still don't really understand. So I had to really kind of internalize and look at myself and really start prioritizing my self care, setting firm boundaries against any environments or narratives that or people that would diminish or invalidate my experience as an autistic woman, Black woman, as a neurodivergent Black woman, someone that's different, and just kind of redefining what my joy looks like. And I find that where I now kind of reflect and I celebrate my successes. I celebrate the fact that I have a doctorate degree in educational leadership and management. I celebrate the fact that even though I just don't always put it out there, even with my clients, that I'm Dr. Harris, because when it comes to my clients, they don't care what title I have. They want me to help them. They want me to show them. They want me to coach them. They want me to help them manage those behaviors. And that's where my joy come from, to see their successes and the steps that they make to thrive. That's where my joy come from. And one particular, how I protect my joy, when I say self-care, when we talk about things like having those quiet moments and sensory regulation and things like that, and being able to decompress, my joy comes from taking that quiet time where the creative side of me of being able to do interior design, interior home staging, and I am styling a home, and there is no one there but me. There's no one there, and I am in my world, and that's where I thrive. So it's okay for us to say, hey, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to celebrate me. And so for me, like I say, just waking up in the morning, that's pure joy, for me, and getting through the day, because at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted right now, and I even said in the beginning, before everything came on, I was not feeling well at all this morning, and working, and so I'm a little under the weather, but you know what? I still have my joy.
Yes. And you look good, Yolanda. You look good, sis. But I
Thank
want
you.
to touch on what you said
The
about
filters, Zoom filters, I tell you, amazing.
there is such a beauty in knowing, like there's such a freedom. And now, like, when you get this diagnosis or this understanding of how you've been navigating the world, or why you've been navigating the world the way you have, and now you have this understanding of it. That to me was joy for me, to now to really sit in the understanding of, okay, this is my disability, and accepting that, and then but saying, and this is how I need to navigate my world and my space in order to be okay. Like the freedom that that brought for me, and the freedom that I see with other people. I don't put too many people business out there, but I have a family member who, I mean, I think we all know, including him, that there is some neurodivergency, and he is so afraid to go in and get that diagnosis because he's like, oh, if I find out, then I'll know. And I'm like, and you're like, there's so much freedom in knowing, because then you don't have to keep hitting this brick wall, right? Because you're trying to do things the way someone else can, when you can achieve, not just do, but achieve and excel the way your God has made you to do it. You know what I mean? Um, and there's so much freedom. Like I see that in you, Yolanda, and what how you speak and what your story is. That like it's like this. You just broke out of this cage when you realize this is who I am, and I could just imagine you speaking to a class on the first day, and how many students that you're touching, because they're like, well, I get to be me, whatever that is. I might not, as a young college student, I might not even know who I am yet, but I get to feel free in this room to express myself and feel safe. And I think that's just a beautiful thing.
Yes, thank you, Juliet. And I can say what brings me joy is I can say that this is my 5 to 9. I have a 9 to 5, but my 5 to 9 is advocacy work. And I get to learn I get to learn from autistic elders. I get to learn and see what my life might be 40, 50, 60 years down the road. God willing, I'll be a doctor. I'll be like Dr. Harris on here. She didn't put that in the bio. So let me come with the correct title. But that was that filled my cup. It's a lot going on in the world, but these webinars have really been a source of strength for me and a source of vitality. So just thank you to our panelists. So our very last question off my sheet In one word, what do you hope audiences take away from your story?
Awareness.
Revolution.
Sorry,
Who's
I'm
next?
not on my compassion.
All right. That was powerful, ladies. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to, because we went over, but this was a good conversation. I'm going to answer some questions for our Q&A. First off, at 6:08, we had someone who was just excited to be here, just thanking us. Next, I really would love to continue supporting this platform and would love to see it expanded. I help support my adult autism group with Autism Society of Northern Virginia, and I love Out Loud. Also, I'm late diagnosed, but I'm also affected by sickle cell and would like to know how we can support significant rare health diagnoses. So, Juliet, if you want to talk about any sickle cell initiatives, I think you are our subject matter expert on that.
We definitely have the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. You can reach out to and they have a chapter in almost every state. And we have a lot of conventions and events that are happening throughout that we travel to. I'm actually coming next in September. There is the Cayenne Wellness Sickle Cell Disease Summit that happens in California. If you do want to reach out to me as well, so I can get you all of those resources, and I'll also get it to Charlotte so she can share them later on the, I think you put it on our YouTube channel. Is that where you put it on the emails? I'll get it to you. But you can also have my email address, which is should I put in the chat or should I just say it?
If you can put it in the chat to everyone, that
Okay,
way everybody will be able to see it.
awesome. We'll do that.
For our executive producers, will all oh sorry, Lord. Will Autistic Out Loud be reaching out to educators, professionals in schools about how autism presents different in our black boys and girls?
Yes, so that's what Juliet and I was talking about over the phone before we got started was, how can we package the documentary, but also the webinar series, because there's so many that, nuggets and truths and resources and all of that that has been shared over the course of the 5 weeks and what we're going to do with the film. So, we definitely want to target, educators, universities, just about the experiences of, Black autistic people. We could include when it comes to boys and girls, because I know that is something that we've, talked about, and I'm sure will be talked about in the film, especially through Yolanda's story. So, yeah, most definitely.
We have another question. These are out of order. Are there any resources for adults like myself? I'm a 37-year-old woman who is on the spectrum. Jennifer jumped ahead and suggested the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network. Does anybody else have any resources? I'm not quite sure where this person is located, and I don't want to put them on blast, but if you have general things that our panelists or anybody would like to share.
Just definitely second that what Jennifer said. Yeah, they doing a lot of great work. So I definitely recommend them. Anything else as far as what to? I know I'm also part of um, the Black National Black Disability Coalition. They do some work still. That's by, Jay Dunham. And so, that's someone, to, to look at their website and contact Miss Jane to see, how you could get involved. I know there are autistic organizations, of course, that's locally, every state has them and different like societies and things like that. But that you can look into, but I definitely recommend look into like autistic led, organizations too. So you can, or support groups in your area that could provide support.
And one of the things that I've done there, if you go online and you can Google meetup groups, I think if you join that forum, or I think it's meetup.com, and then you can type in the search engine in your local area and just type in those keywords, and you're going to find that there are groups in your local area that will cater to in terms of your needs. And so that's one of the things that I've done. And when I did that, I found groups and individuals where I've attended concerts. I've attended just other social functions, because I said I really need to step out of, say, our comfort zone, because of the social awkwardness, and not wanting to mask and just be myself, and others are okay with me being myself. And I would kind of joke and kid around, say, okay, the little 10-year-old's about to come out, and I use the comic relief and all of that, and I laughed at myself all the time as well. So finding those social groups. So if you Google, in your local area, and I do think it's called Meetup or something like that, that may be something that you may want to look into in terms of social things like that, and to find those like-minded individuals.
I would like to share in the Brooklyn area, in the New York area, there's an organization called My Time Inc. The director is a woman by the name of Lucina Clark, and she's a Caribbean woman, and she has done a lot of advocacy work, a lot of resources for autistic families in the New York area. So I would like to also add that.
Thank you. And I would just say, following the webinar, keep a lookout for that resource document, because we will also have resources from previous panels. Like we have representatives from Hezekiah's Kids here in Detroit, Autism in the D, Autism in Black. So we are a cross-country network. Our final question, and then I am going to give it over to our panelists to tell us where we can find them. How can disability justice organizations like Disability Community for Democracy Incorporated support your work? Tamika or Juliet?
Yeah, so you can support our work. You can, email me. I put my email in the chat, which is info at autisticOutLoudDocumentary.com. And so that could, you'll just reach out, let us know that you want to support us. We also put in the chat, we're accepting donations. We definitely need help with that. But if you want to partner with us, as we're, especially when we do the distribution, because we're still at the beginning stages of it, but want to support us, definitely indicate that in an email to me. And then definitely follow us on Instagram and YouTube page.
Thank you. Now we're going to go down the line of panelists. I believe I have your links, but for the people who are more auditory, can you let us know where to find you in your work?
Yes, this is Jen White Johnson speaking. You can find me online at jenwhitejohnson.com. And you can spend some time with my artwork and my design work. And I'm also on social media, Instagram, preferably at JT Knox Rocks. And I'm also, accessible through email at jwhitetorres@gmail.com. Awesome.
You can find me at Yolanda Harris at trainingphase.com. I still have a 9 to 5, working towards my retirement, but I still have that 9 to 5. So the training phase is definitely after 5 p.m. on weekends. Definitely do not let it interfere with my current 9 to 5. I definitely keep that part of my life separate. Or LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and that's where you can pretty much find me.
Nancy, do you have any links to share where the people can find you?
Yes, they're all my personal. I have my personal email, which is NL Tanis, Nancy L Tanis. So it'll be nltanis@gmail.com. And my IG page, Instagram would be Ian and Chase Your Dream. IANANDCHAYSE Your Dream. And my Facebook is Nancy Tanis. Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to keep up. That was a lot of information, but I'm going to keep typing in the chat. And if I miss one, keep an eye out from an email from info@autisticlouddocumentary.com. If anybody is interested in seeing my work as a speaker or a moderator, I am on LinkedIn as Charlotte Bachelor, Charlotte like Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Says with 2 S's on the end. And I'm going to give it back to Tamika and Juliet.
Oh, I'm not sure how to put put my stuff in the chat for everyone to see, so I just put it in there, and
I got it.
You can help me save it. Thank you.
And then you can follow me. I'm on LinkedIn, Tamika Citrus Spruce, Facebook, and then my website, TamikaCitrusSpruce.com. So that's where you can find me and all my work. That I do have another project, Divas in the City, as well, that I'm working on. Also, so you can, if you know, definitely similar to this, but it's for Black women with disabilities. No surprise. So, definitely go there, Divas in the City TV, to watch the digital series and just inspirational content. So, so thank you all for so much for joining us today for our last Autistic Out Loud webinar. We hope you're leaving with not just information, but inspiration of the real stories, voices, and tools to move this work forward. Again, Judy and I created this webinar series, an upcoming documentary, because we believe that Black autistic lives matter, Black disabled lives matter, and that our voices must be in the center in every conversation when it comes to autism, disability, and justice. Today, you have witnessed what it means to be autistic out loud, to speak truth, challenge the system, and celebrate identity unapologetically. If today's conversation moved you, we encourage you to keep going. Watch the documentary when it comes out. Share this webinar series. Start conversations and continue to uplift Black autistic voices, the people on this panel and all the other panels. Definitely uplift their voices in your everyday life. A huge thank you to our speakers, our team, and to each of you who is showing up with open hearts and open minds. Your presence here helped us build a more inclusive and just future where no one is left out or behind. Be sure to follow us on social media, Autistic Out Loud Documentary on Instagram and YouTube for updates and recordings. And that's it. So just follow us. And until next time, stay bold, stay loud, and stay rooted in justice. Thank you and take care.